to me, when you fail is when you absolutely give up on things. If you're trying to do something and you don't succeed at it, to me, that's not failure. That's just life. But when you kind of throw your hands up, say, I'm not doing it anymore, that's the failure part. So, but
Any of my brothers that are out there, struggling with their deployment or, life in general, I tell them that, hey, to stay strong and to keep holding on and to understand, you're here for a reason and that, your life and what you're doing does have purpose.
Hey everyone, this is Greg Washington and welcome to the next episode of Guards Down. I have with me today a very special person. His name is Tony Coaxum. I have known him basically my whole military career. He's been a mentor, a good friend, also a frat brother as well. Tony, I don't want to give it away, so I'm going to let you do it. Tell us your background. Tell us about yourself.
Well, Greg, appreciate you having me on here. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina, so I'm a country boy just like you. Went to West Point and started at the prep school, got to West Point and played football there as a corner, started there for 3 years and graduated in 2000. And I was commissioned as a second lieutenant of field artillery. And right after that, I got a chance to go back to our prep school to coach, and kind of that's where we met. You coming out as a highly recruited football player for us and getting a chance to kind of, coach you immediately at the prep school and kind of that's kind of where our relationship started. From there, went down to my officer base, of course, Fort Sill, and was stationed at Fort Bragg, where I served as an artillery officer, like I said, in the 3321 Field Artillery Regiment in the 18th Airborne Corps. Made it to the rank of captain, had some medical issues, had a back deal that kind of forced me out a little bit the Army before I was ready to. Which I didn't say, I'm from a military family. We have it all bases covered. My dad was in the Air Force, mom was in the Navy, grandfather served in World War II, aunts, uncles, my wife, my son is currently serving right now and just in doing his thing. So it's a family of service and just a kind of the family business, so to speak. But after I got out of the military, kind of got civilian world and wanted to still be around the game and volunteered at a high school down in Georgia, coaching high school ball. And that's kind of where I caught the coaching bug and realized my worst day coaching was better than any job I've ever had. And that's when I started to pursue it. Had a chance to go back to West Point, where I coached there for 7 years. Had a great experience there, going back to my alma mater. From there, I had a chance to get a job in the NFL, working with the Baltimore Ravens, working with special teams, working with great guys like Jerry Rosberg and John Harbaugh. Met Gary Kubiak there when he was the OC. That next year, he got a chance to go back to Denver to be the head coach, and he thought enough of me to bring me along to be assistant special teams coach there, assistant special teams coordinator. And that first year, we won the Super Bowl 50. Which was an unbelievable experience. Was Denver for a couple of years. Then as the coaching world goes, you do a lot of moving around and bouncing around. And from there, I was at Central Michigan for a year, working as special teams coordinator and cornerback coach. From there, I went to Kansas as a special teams analyst. And now I'm currently the special teams coordinator and DB coach at Northern Colorado. Back out here, and, obviously everything we're going on right now, we're kind of in limbo. But that's pretty much my background right now. And again, thanks for having me on.
Understood. I appreciate it. So just so all y'all out there know what kind of coach he is, I'll tell, my one great story. We were at the prep school and what was it, a Wednesday or Thursday?
Yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that. Yep.
You told me, all right, you're moving from linebacker to play safety for the prep school Army Navy game. And he's like, I'm going to teach you how to play the option. Never played the option, from a safety standpoint. And he showed me the ropes, in 2 or 3 days on how to do it. And I ended up having like one of my game high, most tackles ever. And it was all thanks to the coaching and stuff that you did. So, I mean, just your tenacity, the way you connect and explain the game is just phenomenal. So I mean, look,
it makes it that much easier when you got a guy like you who's versatile and can run and play all those things. So, like I said, it's not about, you hear this all the time, it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and the Joes. So better players you have, more talented and committed guys you have, that makes my job a lot easier. So I just kind of point you in the right direction, and like the bulldog you were on the Doberman, you were on the football field. You see ball, go get ball. So
right.
That was a hell of a game by you.
So look, so before we get into, the meat of the podcast, being a coach, especially at the collegiate level, and understanding, what's going on with COVID and the whole and COVID-19 and the whole deal, what inspiration, what encouragement, what advice would you give high schoolers that are going into their senior year looking to get recruited about college, and then also for your guys that are on the team now?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. Like I said, this has been, again, unlike anything that anyone has ever faced, in our lifetime. And again, it makes you reevaluate how you do things. But what I always try to live my life on, and something that's been a strength of mine, has always been able to not worry about things I can't control. I've always tried to do that, and I'm not going to say that. I think a lot of it was kind of God-given to me, because it was something I've always had. Even as a little kid, I never really let a lot of things I couldn't manage affect me in a negative way. Sometimes it does, but for the most part, I was able to shake it off pretty quickly. Like you said, a lot of these kids are, especially the high school kids, they're in a state of worry when it comes to the recruiting side of it, because, as a coach, one of the big things we look for, we look at film and evaluate, but we like meeting the kids in person. And we like getting them to camps and going to watch them in their practice. And that was really eliminated this year due to the COVID-19 stuff. So, a lot of those opportunities for those kids to get in front of a coach and be on a campus and be in a camp and show them their skill set has gone away. So that makes a lot of them nervous. And again, honestly, makes us nervous as coaches. But again, I tell kids, and kids are like, hey, coach, what I got to do to kind of get my name? I say, hey, you said and I tell kids all the time, even in normal circumstances, is recruiting stuff. It can be really stressful on a young kid. And I says, hey, don't worry about the recruiting stuff. Enjoy your senior year of high school. Do the things that you've always done to make yourself stand out. And don't worry about, getting offers from this guy or if these coaches watch them. Enjoy that senior year, because you're never going to get that back. And a lot of guys do more harm because they focus on things that they can't control and try to do too much, and it hurts them. And then it makes that senior year miserable, and that's something, hey, you don't get that back. So I always try to tell the kids, just focus on doing the things that you can do. Focus on your workouts. Focus on, your schoolwork. Focus on those things that you have control of, and everything else will play out like it is. And I kind of do the same thing to our guys. When we were able to talk to them and have meetings, our biggest thing was, hey, use this time to maximize what you can maximize. Everyone's circumstances. There, some kids don't have home gyms, so they got to find makeshift ways to stay in shape.
Yep.
And my thing is always try to and kind of the big things now. A lot of these kids we coach, everybody wants to go to the NFL and say that's their goal, and in general, a lot of kids say that because they think that's what they're supposed to say, and they don't understand the work that's involved with that. And I tell kids, hey, if that's what you want to do, if that's your goal, that's great. Now you've put yourself in a situation is every time you say, I want to go to the NFL, now everything you do should be geared towards that. So when that morning you get up and you don't want to go to class, or you don't want to turn on your Zoom meeting and meet with your class, how is that going to affect you getting to the NFL? Mm-hmm. When you're tired and you don't want to do that extra rep or run that extra sprint, that might be the one rep. It sounds silly, but that's just what it is, because I've been at that level. One rep might be the one rep that costs you a shot at the league, because there are when coaches are doing evaluations at that level, they're looking at ways to eliminate guys off their board, not trying to add more guys on their board, because it's thousands of players out there who are qualified at all levels to play at that level. So they're trying to take their draft board and shrink that thing down to a certain point. Say, okay, these are the guys we're going to look at. and they're going to go to everything possible to try to eliminate guys. They'll go back and talk to middle school teachers to try to find a reason to take a guy off the list, because ability-wise, it's here and here. That gap isn't that very high when you're evaluating guys. So, again, you can't control something. You can't control what another player is doing. You can control your aspect of it. So that's kind of what we always try to focus on with our guys, and just me in general in every aspect of coaching I've been in. Hey, worry about what you can control, do what you can do, and get the most out of your ability, and everything will fall where it may.
I know, and I appreciate that insight. And so, it's kind of the segue into this, because I know for me, football was my outlet growing up to, the things that, I did and experienced. And so having football as an outlet, and then understanding that, one, I was really good at it, and two, the opportunities that it would bring, it motivated me even more to do well at school, to, do well at home, because I love the sport. And so I appreciate you sharing that, and also, just giving the guys some encouragement out there that are still going through, or going through. Because I have a rising senior, and so I know he's nervous as well. And so, just putting his mind at ease as far as that is interesting. The first question that I have for you, dealing with trauma and grief, did your parents or someone else teach you how to deal with it, right? Do you feel like you got a good baseline?
Yeah, I think for me, what started all for me just dealing with it is I've always had a really good support system. Growing up, always had a tight-knit family. And I said tight-knit, it's not like we always did a lot of like family outings or things like that, and we probably could have spent more time together, doing, kind of more group family type things. But what I can say that I was blessed with my family and close friends was that anytime something happened, we always found a way to band together. Something as little as, when my mom joined the Navy, she had to go to San Diego for basic training, all the stuff. I couldn't be there with her. I lived with my aunt, and to this day, she's like another mother to me. And I was never wanting for anything. And again, that's a different level of quote unquote trauma. Your mom leaves to go do something like that and having that change. But I never went without. It was never a feeling of not being supported and everything. And in everything in life, it always happened that way. I always had a strong support system around. So I think that was the biggest thing. And then from there, just having a great group of friends, starting in high school, and guys that are my friends since 8th grade. And just like my West Point, my friends like you and my teammates and other guys, we've been friends for over 30 years, almost 30 years now. And we have each other's backs, and we came from kind of the same backgrounds. And it was kind of that old school, it takes a village. When I was with them and their parents, at their house, I knew, hey, their parents knew, hey, they took care of me like I was their kid. And I still have some of those same things. I tell my players all the time, I treat them like they're my son. I have the same expectations I have of my son. And I expect them that way, and I'm going to hold them to those same standards. So, and then I just kind of blossomed all the way to obviously going to West Point and being taught and having that same type of base. So to answer the question, I wouldn't say there was some, real formal training that my parents did and my family did. It was just, it started with that support system and
Gotcha.
me seeing how they supported each other and me and other people, and it naturally rubbed off. And again, I was just blessed to have those levels throughout my life.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. So establishing, or at least having, a strong support system, growing up is key to being able to deal with trauma and grief.
Hey guys, it's Jerome. Greg and I wanted to invite you to the community that we created for the whole Guards Down family. Jump on Facebook or check the show notes for the Guards Down Facebook group. There you'll be able to find a community of folks who are committed to raising awareness about complex grief and PTSD. Look forward to chatting with you guys in the group. Now let's get back to the episode.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences dealing with either trauma or grief? You don't have to go into, details, but just.
I think one of the first ones that really hit home for me, a family that was pastor of a church that we went to growing up, and I got really close to their kids, big family. And I think I was like 7th or 8th grade. And one of the kids tragically passed away, in a swimming accident. And that was the first time I really saw a young person pass away. You know what I mean? Usually, you see older people and okay, that happens. It doesn't really affect you the same. But when I saw that, I didn't understand it, and then just being around that. Again, he was like kind of like a big brother to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I'm an oldest child, so I mean, I've never had a big brother to look up to. Someone closer in age to look up to. I've always been the one people looked up to. My younger brothers and cousins and stuff like that. So that was kind of the first thing. So again, having that support system around got me through it, and it was rough. But unfortunately, just through the years of coaching and just being around, and I've had experienced it way too much, and particularly with younger people. Honestly, I have had more younger people pass away that I was close to than older people. Yeah, I'm so fortunate to have both my parents around. I have my grandfather lived until he was like 98 and just passed away a few years ago. That was tough, but my grandmother's still alive. My grandparents on my mother's side are still there. So I haven't had a lot of those things, but it's been people my age and younger. It's tough because again, you still answer why. I have guys that I coached at Army have passed away, and guys, it's so again, just going back to that support system, and then just always for me personally, I've never been afraid to just let it go and shed tears, whether it's by myself or talking to other people. So those are kind of the things that have been on, and like I said, just kind of just being open about it. And I've always been able to be pretty open about it and let people in.
What were some of the coping skills you had to learn along the way? Healthy and unhealthy.
I guess I'll start with the unhealthy one is sometimes trying to place blame. The kind of human nature why you're saying, why did this happen, or whose fault is it? And that does nothing for you because there really isn't an answer for, even if there is an answer, there isn't an answer that's going to help you. So placing blame has kind of been the thing. And the next one is kind of healthy and unhealthy. The end depends. You just got to know when to stop it. Sometimes it's putting yourself in isolation. I think there were times when I would do that. That gives me a time to kind of deal with things on my own and process them. But it early on, there's sometimes you spend too much time alone, and then it really eats at you too much and it puts you in a bad state. So I've learned how to do that and then reach out to people in order to kind of get back on the right track. And some of the other positive coping things for me personally, sometimes it's just doing things physical. And you can translate to people. That could be whatever you do to relax yourself, to lose yourself in whatever you're doing. And for me, it's being physical. It's working out. It's stuff like that. And some people, it could be writing. It could be music, it could be drawing, whatever that is for you, but something to take your mind off the situation, just to kind of breathe and not get stressed out.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I said it numerous times, for me, it's always just getting close to the people or talking to the people or reaching out to the people that means the most to you. Again, the support group, for me, it keeps coming back to support group. I know I've said that over and over again, but for me, that's kind of one of the biggest things. And again, it all depends on your personality. If you're not so quote unquote a people person, you may spend longer time in those in that time of isolation, or spend more time doing those things you do for fun or to relax your mind. So it varies. But for me, the end point is always, being around people that bring you joy and that you're comfortable with, that you care about.
Yeah.
And then talking about the positives of, whatever situation. If it's like you lost someone, thinking about the things that person did to inspire you or made you laugh, and kind of remembering them in a positive way.
Gotcha. Okay, so just to go back to, we said healthy versus unhealthy. So when we look at unhealthy, and this is kind of common, right? People tend to place the blame on themselves. And so break down how you were able to get out of that, right?
Mhm.
Because I mean, I know for me, when Emily died, I placed a lot of blame on myself because I made a promise to her, you know, that I was going to be there to protect her.
Mhm.
And shoot, I had to come to the realization that I'm human, right? I can only do what's within my reach of being able to, you know, to do things. So speak to us about like breaking down, like blaming yourself and how to get out of that mindset.
Yeah. It comes down to, first of all, when I'm in a situation, I'm flipping on the other side to where I'm in a situation, I'm talking to someone who's going through grief and trauma and having those feelings. At first, I let them voice it. I let them kind of just vent, let it all out a little bit, let them kind of say what they want to say and get those thoughts out, because one, it allows me to, at some point, they're going to reveal what, it's going to reveal itself why they feel that way. They're going to put themselves in a situation. They're going to reveal something that says, this is why I feel like I'm responsible for this occurrence. And then when you do that, now that gives you, as I guess, a grief counselor, for lack of a better term, the chance to try to process it and understand where they're coming from. And then I always use that to point a situation to say how that's not their fault. You say, hey, there's no way you could do this. There's no way you could have changed this. I understand how you're feeling about this. Here's kind of point out, hey, you wouldn't have been able to make a change there. And then also kind of, if you know both parties, so to speak, if you know the person that they lost, then you can kind of relate it back to, okay, here's what this person would have said. Here's how he or she would feel. They wouldn't hold you accountable for that. They wouldn't think, you had anything to do with this, and here's why. So those are kind of the biggest things of making sure that they understand that. Again, always letting them listen and hear, because at some point they're going to reveal to themselves what the issue is.
Okay. So with that being said, how has your culture shaped how you deal with, trauma and grief, right? Because you spoke on, just being able to listen to someone and letting them get it out. Just being military and understanding that everybody comes from different backgrounds. How have you viewed the different cultures and how, people cope and deal with grief and trauma?
That's one of the, I think, out of everything, just my experience with my family and going through West Point and being surrounded by a group of people and always being around a diverse group of people. I think my biggest strength is the way I can relate to people and my willingness to listen and, just that whole leadership part. I think ultimately that's my strongest suit. So just understanding how different people deal with things, it's allowed me to, and then how I deal with them, just to know that, hey, there's no really right or wrong way to deal with grief or trauma outside of, complicating things by doing anything illegal or anything along those lines. But just, again, having a wide base of people from, people I grew up with to, people, my West Point family and brotherhood of guys that are from different parts of the country, different parts of the world, being immersed in that during my time at West Point, really opened up my eyes to, just to listen to how people deal with things and get their point of view. And it allows me to be able to pull on those different things to access. And again, I use all those different tools as an Army, when I was an Army officer and as a coach, even I work civilian world, and it all ties together. So just having that wide group of people and just listen to their experiences allowed me to pull on it and say, hey, well, such and such, he had this, and be able to use that to apply to someone who may have been in a different situation.
What has been the toughest part, right? Because we've been speaking from both hats, right? Someone who has dealt with it and someone who is supporting another person that's dealing with, trauma or grief. So what has been the toughest part of your journey in you dealing with trauma and grief as well as supporting someone?
I think the toughest part is when, for me, is when I'm trying to support someone and I'm going through it at the same time. You know what I mean? When we are attached to the same person. Because again, like I said, I'm a very emotional person, and it's, with me trying to support them, I start boohooing my eyes out and can't talk and all that. And I'm thinking, like, how am I supposed to help this person when I can't even get it out myself? But on the flip side, I found out that actually has helped a lot, because they see it, and they've realized, hey, I'm not going through this by myself as well. So again, so the part, and that's my own self evaluation, thinking I'm not being strong enough to help this person. But most of the time, and it seems like every time, it's always helped them, because they're like, well, I know I'm not hurting by myself. And there have been several times where that it has flipped to that person, and now they're consoling me and they're doing the same thing to me that I was trying to do for them. And then kind of we get through it together. So, but yeah, that's kind of been the hardest part. And then just my personal way of being kind of the really believing in the servant leadership and wanting to help people. You get to those points when sometimes you feel like you can't help someone, when they're going through it and you feel helpless. And then sometimes you try too hard, and I got to catch myself and not overdo it. But I always say those are the two biggest things, when myself and the other person are kind of feeling the same hurt, because we have that person that we lost in common, or whatever caused the grief has been in common. And then secondly, being in a place where you absolutely feel helpless, and then you either you try too hard, and it could lead you to kind of maybe say something you're not supposed to say, or do something that's not as productive.
Gotcha. Okay. So with that being said, it's kind of like with it being, tough and having to go through it as well. And also, that feeling of feeling helpless, people tend to would do anything to put out that fire, right? Like to get that distraction or anything like that. So the question is, along that journey, have you hurt anyone in the process of healing? And if so, how did you go about making amends, if you did?
That's a good one. I mean, honestly, nothing really comes to mind where I've hurting anyone. There are times where, just in the heat of things, you may have said something that may have kind of upset them in the moment. I kind of been on both sides of that, when, where they're trying to help them and that person has gone and said something out of being defensive and have hurt me. And I know I've done that myself. I think the biggest thing is just to fix that issue is just, again, be remorseful, be honest, and let them know where it came from. Let them know it came from a place of weakness, a place of your own sense of trauma, your own sense of heartache, and it really comes down to the strength of that relationship you have with that person. If you really have a really strong relationship with that person, we all understand we will say things at times that will hurt each other, but the sooner you can remedy it by, hey, this is not what I really meant. It came from a place of frustration or anger, and just wholeheartedly and genuinely apologizing for it.
Mm-hmm. What helped you?
Has been key.
What helped you to keep going?
You mean just in life in general, or?
Yeah, in general.
Just that I know I've always got people. Again, being my mom's the oldest in our family, and I'm the oldest, cousin, all that. I've always kind of been the oldest on my side of the family. Mm-hmm. So I've always had people looking up to me. And I think to me, that's to never want to let anyone down. not let my family members down, the people that looked up to me down, having great pride in my name. My family name, the name I carry is Coaxum from my mom's side. And then just the other side of my dad's side of family, Taylor's last name, having so much pride in both sides of my family and not want to let those people down. So it's always been, I'm not allowed to fail. And when I say not allowed to fail, I know failure is part of growth, but also when you fail is when you absolutely give up on things. If you're trying to do something and you don't succeed at it, to me, that's not failure. That's just life. But when you kind of throw your hands up, say, I'm not doing it anymore, that's the failure part. So what keeps me going is the saying, hey, I got people looking up to me, and how can I tell them to fight through the issues they're going through if I don't do it? You know what I mean? So to me, that's always been the thing of, hey, I got people that's looking up to me, and I don't want to let them down. So I can't quit.
Gotcha. Okay, so with that being said, and understanding that, it's just life, and that failing is not giving up, but understanding that life happens, right? And you push through. Have you had to seek help?
As you like true professional help?
Mm-hmm.
I would say not in the sense of like really sitting up and going into like medical doctors, but I think seeking help is reaching out to mentors. I always talk to people that I looked up to, whether it be, counselors, professors at West Point, tactical officers, fraternity wise, older brothers that I had respect for. So I would say I've sought help that way.
Yeah.
But as for, true, medical doctor type professional help, quote unquote, I didn't have to do that. But,
Gotcha.
it's that help comes in whatever form is available to you.
Yeah.
And whether it be, like I say, for me, it could be mentors and things like that, or going to, quote unquote, people who major in that field. I think it's all essential, and it varies per person, and people shouldn't be afraid to go pursue that, because it's all about finding ways to get through and push on.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up. I got two last questions, and the first one is, what advice would you give your younger self, or even your kids?
Biggest thing is to always, never give up on your goals. Always, if you have things you want to do, go for it and give it a shot, because you never know where it's going to end up. I wouldn't, if I gave up on a lot of things, or if I failed to try something, I wouldn't be where I am today. And when you attempt certain things, it may lead you down a whole nother path that you didn't know that you wanted. Wasn't my goal to be a football coach. But my chance of, I took the shot of playing football at West Point, which I didn't play football in high school. I was a track guy and basketball guy. And that led me down the path of playing in college and falling in love with the game and getting into coaching, and, end up winning a Super Bowl, which, there's people who've been striving to do that their entire lives that haven't had an opportunity. And so always, always do that. And then always be true to yourself. Always, every decision that you make it because you want to make it. Don't, peer pressure. Yeah, it's real, but it's also not real. I know that sounds contradictory, but I kind of promise I've never been a guy to really succumb to peer pressure. If I did something, I did it because I chose to do it. And when you do that, you're always able to look yourself in the face a little bit more, and then you're more willing to take responsibility if it goes wrong, because it's harder to lie to yourself than it is to blame on someone else. So if you put that decision on yourself, be true to yourself, 9 times out of 10, you're always going to end up on the right track.
Gotcha. Are there any resources that you would like to share that may be out there?
One thing that another thing that with all the stuff that's going on, the way the world has changed and working from home, it has allowed me to kind of look at some things and always reevaluate the things that I've done and things that I may have wanted to get done. And being a coach, it's a very, it's a year-round thing, particularly when you're in college. But I've had time to kind of look at things, and I really value my time as a West Point grad and the Army, being an Army officer and coaching. And it all has always come together for me in doing one thing. I've started to kind of go down the road of using all those tools and assets to, kind of push that into a venture to where I want to use that knowledge of leadership and my experience in leadership, which I think is my biggest strength in bringing people together and team building, and use that to push to, smaller companies and leadership groups. And I've kind of gone down the role of the calling the leadership playbook coach is kind of my branding that I'm working towards, and a venture to where using all those things I learned as an Army officer, as a coach, and putting into helping people to be better leaders themselves, and also build better teams. And so that's something that will that I'm working on. And
what's the website and the social media handle?
So the hashtag is hashtag leadership playbook coach. That's the hashtag, and the main website is leadershipplaybookcoach.com. We'll be going live, hopefully very soon in the next couple of weeks or so. And I'll have a YouTube channel, and again, it'll all be around Leadership Playbook Coach. That's kind of the brand that I'm using for myself. Again, it takes my West Point background and my life as a coach and putting it all together. And really, both sides, there's really not much difference being an Army officer and being a football coach. You take a bunch of people from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic states, different ethnic groups, different religions, and trying to get them all on the same page to accomplish a goal. And that's what you do as an Army officer, and that's what you do as a coach, and that's what you do in the corporate world. And I want to use all those tools to help people, again, bring people together, not only on the football field, but in civilian world and just in life. There's a lot of the same things that you can use in life to bring people together. So those are kind of the couple tools. So keep an eye out for that stuff in the very near future.
There we go. Well, look, we're getting ready to wrap up. Any last words of encouragement you want to give out there?
Twofold. One, to just everyone out there, again, life is not, just a straight line. Life's a bunch of curves, a lot of detours. Sometimes you got to get off an exit and make a U-turn, a lot of different things. But the key thing to it is keep pushing. And, so when all else fails, don't be afraid to reach out to someone and ask for help, because no one's done anything in life without someone else either pulling them along or pushing them along. And when you get that, you pass it on to others. And then the second is, geared to you, man. Like I said, I've known you since you've been 17, 18 years old. And we've been close a lot of ways, man. I'm so proud of the things you've done, again, using the platform of football and to get to West Point and be a successful Army officer, and the things you're doing in life, and being a father. And then this venture of reaching out and helping people, man. And like I said, so proud of everything you've done, and excited to see where things go for you. And like I said, we're attached to the hip, brother, in a lot of different ways. And I'm always here for you. And and I know you're always there for me. And we've had talks on personal level, a lot of different things. So it works, man. So again, keep doing the great things you're doing, brother. And love you, man.
Indeed. Much love. Well, look, this is Coach Coaxum and Greg Washington. We're signing out, telling everybody to stay safe, stay focused, and stay engaged. Rob.
That's what it's really all about. Giving yourself a fighting chance to just show what you got.